Well, Khumalo also spoke about 121 dockets apparently hidden at the Pretoria headquarters under the watch of suspended National Deputy Commissioner for Crime Detection, Shadrack Sibiya. Khumalo today confirming that by December last year, the Political Killings Task Team was investigating 125 dockets in total. But as of March this year, only 4 had actually progressed to court for prosecution. That's raised worries about the pace and transparency of justice in politically motivated assassinations.
This is the report as at the end of December. So the number 121 became famous around after March. Then that will mean that some of the, or 4 of the cases that were still under investigation as at the end of December were now no longer under investigation, but they were at court. Hence, then the difference between 125 dockets under investigation in this report as at the end of December and the 121.
Let's speak further about today's evidence at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, bring in security expert and head of the Department of Law, Safety and Security Management at the Tshwane University of Technology, Professor Kholofelo Rakubu. Prof, good evening. Welcome back to the SABC. So first things first, today's evidence basically in part a corroboration, isn't it, of what we've heard from the National Commissioner, Fanima Simula, KZN Commissioner, Lt as well as the head of legal services last Friday. How much weight does it add to the allegations that the Minister, Senzo Mchunu, and the Deputy National Commissioner, Shadrack Sibiya, were obstructionist in the least or doing the bidding of criminals in the worst instance?
Good evening. Today's testimony indeed corroborate a foundation led by General Mkhwanazi, and it also taps into Masemula's testimony and the other legal experts' testimony. Remember, all of them, particularly Mkhwanazi and Masemula, have been leading us to Khumalo's testimony. There were issues wherein they would say, I can only end here, Khumalo will come in to speak on them. So today, Khumalo took us to where we were left hanging. He went deeper into the context of organized crime or organized cartel in South Africa. He took us to understand the magnitude of this political infiltration. He tried to tap into the nature of communication and documentation that substantiate allegations around the political infiltration. Even today, the context of name dropping was also the order of the day, which also might add on the list of possible witnesses, because some of those mentioned today might be given an opportunity to come and give their side of the story. But we've got to understand and even give it a name, if I were to say so. Today we're talking of the Big Five. It is something new today.
Right. And let's talk about the Big Five, because Dumisani Khumalo basically today named Vusumuzi Matlala and Katiso Molefe as part of the Big Five. We've got 3 other figures who remain unnamed at this point. What stops them from continuing with any sort of crime when you consider that we're told here that they've got their fingers on every lever of power, allegedly, from the evidence we've heard so far?
The 3 names not being mentioned, we were given reasons, although at some point the reasons did not make sense, but we understand that there are some information that could not be shared because of the implications on the ongoing investigations. But that does not mean they will stop committing crime. But again, South Africans are highly interested in those, but we understand reasons why, because some have not even brought to order, some have not even been summoned or even so for protection of information, and they cannot be mentioned at this stage. But again, it might be that they are also not certain. The link is not, the dot is not connected to a greater extent that they can openly be named. But again, with the 2 mentioned, at least the process has been public. Now we understand where they are in the justice system or in the process, so it's easier. They are a bit protected than the others. So others cannot be mentioned because it might be that they might be highly vulnerable.
Right.
They might not even be protected if they were to be mentioned at this stage before they can be put to order like others. It's easier to talk about Brian Mohozi or Ket Matala because they are within a particular system, well-managed system than the three that are not mentioned.
Right. But even in their cases, we're hearing that from behind the walls, the prison walls of the country, Vusumuzi Ket Matala, for instance, was able to get a hold of a cell phone, etc., and continue some sort of communication. When you look at the alleged crimes of this Big Five cartel detailed by General Khumalo today, he spoke about a cartel that's involved basically mainly in the trafficking of drugs. There is corruption, especially in the public sector, so tender fraud, extortion, ATM bombings, which alarmingly, he said, were basically used to generate money in between the periods between the bigger tranches of cash that would come in from their bigger crimes. Now, if these people were benefiting to the tunes of millions, they would no doubt want to put an end to any attempt, right, to stop their feeding from this sort of crime. Right now, how much of a pushback do you think they are likely to mount, and what would it look like?
The pushback, what we experienced a weeks after Mkhwanazi's allegation was a major pushback. Remember, there were also publications citing, or there are other individuals implicating Mkhwanazi or questioning Mkhwanazi's decision. And when you tap into those allegations against Mkhwanazi or conspiracy theories that emanate from Mkhwanazi's allegations, as termed by other people, you can understand that that is a pushback from those syndicates. And again, the delays around and also the response around the allegations. The president took time to respond first. And secondly, people were put on special leave unnecessarily so. Dockets remained in certain offices which they were not supposed to be. And you can understand the nature and the abrupt decision taken around the disbandment of the PKTT that had a particular influence. Somebody had to close this operation as quickly as possible without taking into consideration investigation underway or protection of witnesses or protection of victims. So it smells all these cartels, and looking into the nature of businesses this cartel is involved in, you can understand the power it holds. It can shut down any process at any time, right, because it's highly infiltrated. So we're just getting to understand the magnitude in which this syndicate has powers over authority.
Very briefly, we're almost out of time. In fact, I think we are. But I want to ask you then about, you mentioned the president. Last week, his name came up in the evidence as well. Questions about how much he knew, how much he may or may not have rubber-stamped plans by Minister Mchunu to get rid of the political killings task team. To what extent should President Ramaphosa then have to account to an inquiry like the Madlanga Commission? And what should the questions to him be? And secondly, what is the strength of the evidence that we've been exposed to so far, with the caveat that some of it will obviously be heard in camera due to the sensitivity of some of the information?
Let's start with Ramaphosa. Remember, he has been mentioned here and there, and South Africans are interested in knowing whether he was aware, or if, because now we're talking of the constitutional mandate, was he consulted when this unlawful decision was taken? Because apparently the minister reported that the president was aware. We need to verify that first. And secondly, when Masemula reached out to the president as a resort, as a pushback, refusing to or not understanding the request from the minister, what is it that the president has done? Because it looks like upon Masemula's report that there's this plan, nothing happened, which raises eyebrows. Then again, but with the evidence at hand at the moment, I will always tap into the limitations of these commissions. We have commissions that do not have legal powers. They can only recommend. And with other commissions, not much has been done. Recommendations are there lying in massive reports and nothing has been done. But we're hoping that with the Madlanga Commission, there can be thorough follow-up and assist with prosecution, although their hands are tied because of the nature of this commission, but at least it should not end here. There should be actionable recommendations that can be easily verified
Right.
to tap into, always check as to if there are 15 recommendations, where are we, so that there can be extensive feedback to South Africans to understand if now all this money spent, was it fruitful or another expensive caucus?
Professor, good to have your time. Professor Kholofelo Rakubu, head of the Department of Law, Safety and Security Management at the Tshwane University of Technology.